Well, on behalf of the World Trade Center Los Angeles and the Los Angeles Economic Development Corporation, welcome and thank you all for joining us this morning for the release of our 2021 Foreign Direct Investment in California report. This special webinar could not be possible without the generous support of our sponsors. Today's session is presented by the Nazarian College of Business and Economics at California State University in Northridge, and is also supported by our strong partners up north, Global SF. Thank you both very much for your partnership. My name is Michael Smith, and I'm the Director of International Trade at the World Trade Center Los Angeles. We have a star-studded program of presenters and panelists who will be sharing their insights on all things foreign direct investment in international business with you today. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce the World Trade Center Los Angeles President, Stephen Chung, to get the program going. Stephen.
Thank you so much, Mike. Good morning, everybody, from sunny Los Angeles. Balmy 72 degrees here in Los Angeles, so we're delighted to have this great event. As Mike mentioned, we have a star-studded program for you today, and I'm not going to spend too much time on the intro, but I want to give you a bit of context and background. This is actually our sixth report. Starting in 2016, we start doing a foreign direct investment report looking at the impact of foreign direct investment to Southern California. And last year, the state of California and GoBiz reached out to ask us to expand our reach to cover all of California to show the importance of foreign direct investments to all of California. And last year has been a very difficult year for the global economy as a whole. For an example, the Los Angeles County Economic Development Corporation conducted a report at the end of 2020 and found that during COVID-19, within the first 2 months of Safer at Home, we lost in just the Los Angeles County region over 700,000 jobs, 700,000. And as of today, we're still over 500,000 jobs short of what we were at 2019, the end of 2019. So as we're moving forward, we know that it's going to be very important for us to attract additional investors, additional opportunities to help us recover, to reimagine not only Los Angeles, but throughout the entire state, because we know our other regions also experience similar difficulties. And I want to thank our partners in Global SF, in CalEd, and of course the Lieutenant Governor's Office and the Governor's Office for their great partnership to allow us to work together to attract these foreign direct investments into Los Angeles. And as you're going to hear about with our upcoming reports, there's some challenges that we're facing, but there's some great opportunities in the future. So without further ado, I want to share some of the data and information and also the background from our great speakers. But to open this program, I'm delighted to welcome one of our partners. As many of you know, the FDI report is so powerful. It's because we partner with our local universities and education institutions to provide additional context and content. And this year, we're delighted to be partnering with CSUN, the Cal State University of Northridge in Los Angeles. And Dean Chandra Subramaniam is the Dean of the CSUN David Nazarian College of Business and Economics. And Dr. Subramaniam is not only the dean, but prior to that, he served as the interim dean and professor of accounting, associate dean for student and programs, chair of the Department of Accounting, all at the University of Texas at Arlington College of Business. And so we're delighted that we're able to attract him to come to Los Angeles, to come to California, to help us to become more competitive around the world. Thank you so much, Dean. The floor is yours. Welcome.
First, let me echo Stephen's welcome to all participants joining us today. As Stephen mentioned, I'm Chandra Subramaniam, Dean of the David Nazarian College of Business and Economics at CSUN. I'm excited to be here today and be part of this program. And I wanted to thank Stephen and the World Trade Center Los Angeles for giving me this opportunity. I'm also really looking forward to Lieutenant Governor Lenny Kounalakis' keynote speech. This past year has been a difficult one for all of us, as we have dealt with shockwaves of the coronavirus pandemic. According to the Bureau of Economic Analysis, real GDP of the US fell by 3.5% last year, which has been very high compared to most years. The pandemic also had a major impact on the direct investment flows, global output, and trade. Similar to that number, we find California's foreign direct investment fell by about 3.57% in jobs and about 1.4% in foreign-owned establishments. However, on a more positive note, according to a report by Kearney Consulting recently, there are high expectations And you'll hear that the US and the global economies are expected to rebound well this year. However, what is interesting about the effects of the pandemic is the differential impact on both people and industry. While the pandemic had a major shock on the labor force, many companies, large and small, not only held their own, but thrived. Similarly, global investment, as reflected in investments in IPOs and ongoing enterprises, did not show much of a downturn. In fact, many companies and major investors did very well in the market, as the stock market, as you know, continued to hit new highs. This has been true not only in the US, but many other exchanges around the world. This may say something about how many firms and organizations made changes and took the opportunity to grow even in the midst of the pandemic. This search for opportunity is also reflected in the World Trade Center's 2021 FDI report issued yesterday. I believe that as the world of business continues to change and adjust to new realities, we will continue to see this ebb and flow. Accordingly, the challenge for us will be to craft a sustainable economic response for all contributors, without leaving some behind. A response driven by an economy based on intentional change, investment, innovation, and talent. This challenge is one that is commanding the attention of many of us in higher education and our economic development partners like the LAEDC. From the perspective of a business school dean, businesses should be prepared to operate in a continuously evolving and changing world of business, which, as a pandemic has taught us, can be structured and conducted with far fewer constraints of place and time. Similar to businesses, university employees and students were required to transition to operate virtually almost immediately without sufficient lead time, just as you were. This meant all employees and students had to be provided with the resources they needed to work and learn remotely. I'm happy to report that we maintained and, in fact, in some cases, improved our enrollment, retention, and graduation rates, showing that even with the constraints of the pandemic, our employees and students can be successful. Finally, I want to spend a minute or so on how we at CSUN's Nazarian College are preparing our students to succeed in a global economy and hyper-competitive labor market. First, we do understand that technology innovation will continue to accelerate, and labor market will increasingly seek to develop domestic technical abilities. In this regard, we have made and are making major changes to our curriculum and our co-curricular activities to not only include data literacy and an understanding of technology for business students, but also ensuring technology conversance, cultural agility, and professional skills. It is and will be through these improvements, additions, and connections that we continue to successfully fulfill our mission to prepare our students for career success. Thank you all for this opportunity to speak with you and enjoy the rest of today's program. Now, let me turn it back to Stephen. Thanks, Stephen.
Thank you so much, Dean, and thank you for your leadership and your support. As I was mentioning before, with all the challenges we face in our economy, it's so important to prepare our workforce to upskill, reskill for the future of work. And what CSUN and your college has done is nothing short of miraculous, adjusting to the various challenges that we're facing as a region. So thank you for your leadership, and I look forward to partnering with you on various programs that we'll be launching after this.
Thank you.
At this point, I would like to, and I'm very excited to welcome our keynote speaker, Lieutenant Governor Eleni Koulonakis, for the second time to our FDI report launch. The Ambassador Koulonakis was sworn in as the 50th Lieutenant Governor of California by Governor Gavin Newsom in 2019. She is the first woman elected Lieutenant Governor of California. A native Californian, she visited each of the state's 58 counties during her historic campaign. In addition to her duties as Lieutenant Governor, Koulonakis is California's representative for international affairs and trade and was appointed by the governor by executive order. with her role, we were able to unite as a region, as a state, to really work together to attract foreign direct investment to increase our international trade capacity. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome our Lieutenant Governor, Eleni Koulanakis. Lieutenant Governor?
Thank you so much, Stephen, for that kind introduction. It's a great pleasure to be with members of the World Trade Center of Los Angeles to commemorate the release of our second statewide report on foreign direct investment in California. The data collected for this report is instrumental in understanding and promoting foreign investment in our state. It is also important in showcasing just how important FDI is to our economy. Bringing more foreign investment to California is a top priority for our international work at the state. We are the 5th largest economy in the world, and California offers unparalleled business advantages with our critical mass of intellectual capital, financial acumen, business services, transportation and logistics systems, and market access. California is deeply integrated into the global economy. We've built successful, profitable relationships with our international partners from every corner of the globe. In fact, California is the #1 U.S. state for jobs supported by foreign-owned businesses. We're also #1 in two-way trade and a leader in critical sectors like manufacturing. Now, that being said, and it's already been mentioned, people will see from this report that we did experience an overall reduction in FDI in 2020. The COVID-19 global pandemic has taken a major toll on the health and welfare of our people, including the tragic loss of over 60,000 Californians. There have also been significant impacts to the economy. And like the rest of the United States, California jobs have been lost and businesses have faced highly uncertain economic conditions. Travel restrictions made it very challenging for growing businesses to identify new locations. The United Nations Conference on Trade and Development reported a global reduction in foreign direct investment of more than 40% in 2020, including a nearly 50% reduction in foreign investment into the United States. It's no understatement to say that 2020 was an exceptional year. However, given California's successful vaccine rollout, our fiscal responsibility, and record-setting budgetary surplus, as well as our reopening planned for June 15th, the light at the end of the tunnel is brighter than ever. Our focus is on economic recovery now and building back a stronger, more resilient economy than we had before. So how do we do that? This year's state budget supports major investment in our economy with historic tax breaks and stimulus programs for small businesses and families, job training and apprenticeship programs, grants and development initiatives, and guidance to help businesses navigate new realities. In addition, California is building an economy that focuses on sustainability and solving tomorrow's problems by turning innovation into commercial success. Perhaps nowhere is this more apparent than with our commitment to promoting zero-emission vehicles. As a result of policies enacted by the state and an economy that supports innovation, zero-emission vehicles have become California's #1 export, and we are doubling down on zero-emission vehicles. Last fall, Governor Newsom issued an executive order to require all new vehicles sold in California to be zero emission by 2035. This is the economy of the future. It's not only our innovative products that make California a global trade powerhouse. For goods movement and supply chain resiliency, this is the place to be. Whether your goods move through ports, trucking companies, airports, railroads, or warehouses, California has some of the best logistics infrastructure in the world to support our businesses. In fact, 40% of all containerized cargo entering the US comes through California's ports. And we have the largest warehouse hub in the US with over 600 million square feet of warehouse space located in Southern California alone. California products have strong traction in the global marketplace because they're always at the cutting edge. And California's innovative mindset is the product of our dynamic, entrepreneurial, global talent pool. California has an open and welcoming society. More than 27% of us are foreign-born. Our person-to-person ties around the world enhance business opportunity and make this state the top choice for businesses looking to expand. We also have a public university system that is second to none. Our community colleges, state universities, and the University of California attract the best and brightest from around the world and here at home to enhance our society and educate the workforce of tomorrow. Right now, 3 million students are enrolled in our systems of public higher education. With incubators and accelerators that help global startups develop and break into the California marketplace, our innovation ecosystem will continue to thrive. Many of our universities have opportunities for industry partnerships that can be tailored to the needs of your business. And of course, California is the #1 global destination for venture capital deal flow and the #1 commercial market in the United States. I am very honored that Governor Newsom designated me the state's lead for international engagement in 2018. Building and enhancing our relationships with global partners is one of my top priorities. California did our best to maintain our international priorities during the Trump administration, and we are now working very productively with the Biden administration to advance our country's interests and values around the world. This work is collaborative. To our colleagues in every country, diplomats, commercial officers, American chambers, business councils, and all the global staff we engage with, I want to thank you for your partnership, working together to help our economies thrive. California has so many important international ties, but I want to just take a couple minutes here to call out a few of our partners specifically. Firstly, Japan. Supporting more than 16% of jobs connected to FDI in California, Japan is our top source of investment and a critical partner. More than 115,000 jobs are supported by Japanese-owned companies in California, paying more than $10 billion in wages. Building on this partnership and expanding the work we do together is a top priority for my office. We see the innovation, the entrepreneurship, and the global business perspective of our friends across the Pacific. This is a historic relationship that we hope will continue to flourish. I'd also like to call out a few other very important partners. Although foreign investment as a whole did decrease in 2020, we saw significant increases from 2 of our closest partners, Ireland and the Netherlands. Irish companies employed more than 2,000 more Californians in 2020 than in 2019, and Dutch companies employed nearly 3,000 more. This increase during the middle of the pandemic is a testament to the extensive work we've done bringing together businesses and sharing ideas with Ireland and the Netherlands, particularly around renewable energy and clean tech. So these 2 countries, though smaller than California, are mighty on the international stage, and I'm honored to work with them. Japan, Ireland, and the Netherlands are just a few of the global partners in our extensive international network. And despite travel restrictions brought about by COVID, our international engagement is stronger than ever. We have both hosted and participated in investment attractions events globally, spotlighting strategic sectors in key markets around the world. The virtual environment has allowed us to share information on doing business in California with hundreds of growing companies on every continent. And if I may make a plug for an upcoming event, stay tuned for Select USA coming up next week, which will feature California prominently. One of the key takeaways of this important report on FDI in California that we are here to release today is the importance of branding California as the FDI destination in the US. Building our participation at events like Select USA is one way for us to do just that. California's most senior leadership, myself included, has dedicated a great deal of time in promoting Select USA. We have increased our capacity to engage on the international stage more proactively. We've brought on 3 trade and investment representatives covering global regions to build relationships on the ground and market California around the world. And we're already seeing the results of our increased capacity. California has maintained and grown our international engagement throughout the pandemic, sharing information, coordinating response, and building connections to be leveraged by businesses. We've got more to do, and we're not letting up. It's our job to create clear paths to support foreign investment that supports innovation and brings high-road jobs to Californians. To the international businesses of the world joining us today, we welcome you, and we're here to help you get started. California is well known by our major urban centers in Los Angeles and the San Francisco Bay Area, but let's not forget the less familiar parts of our state. The Central Valley is one of the world's most productive agricultural regions and a global hub for ag tech. The northern part of our state leads the way on renewable energy, biomass, and agriculture, aquaculture. In addition to being the state capital, the Sacramento region has unparalleled support for new businesses and a thriving tech scene. And in the southeast part of our state, lithium deposits will power our EV future. For any of you who have questions about where to begin, please know that we're here to help. We have the innovation ecosystem, the talent pool, the support, and the incentives international businesses need to flourish. In closing, I want to thank the World Trade Center of Los Angeles again for their important work putting together this exceptional report, particularly at such a unique time for international economic engagement. This report makes a couple of things plain. Foreign investment is a critical part of our economy and key to what makes California so dynamic. It's also a testament to our resiliency. We need foreign investment. We welcome it, and we're looking forward to next year's report, which we hope will showcase an even stronger recovery. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lieutenant Governor, for your remarks. That's fantastic to hear. The first thought I have is what you mentioned about our economy as we're recovering. We at the World Trade Center Los Angeles and LAEDC, our mission and our focus is to really build a regional economy that is growing, equitable, sustainable, resilient, and provides a healthy standard of living for all Californians, really. And so what you mentioned before in terms of your efforts and your work is so inspiring to all of us, because we need to work closer together to ensure that we do have all those components so that we can recover in a way that we haven't seen before. And at the same time, I also wanted to say that your call out for our partners over in Japan and Ireland and the Netherlands is very timely. One, I see that we have a lot of participants from our friends at Japan House, the Japanese Consulate, and JBA, the Japan Business Association, on the call right now. And also Ireland and Netherlands, also right before COVID-19, around 2019, both opened up their offices in Southern California and Los Angeles to really increase that engagement, which leads me to, I have a couple of questions I want to ask you. In light of everything that's been happening, how has global outreach engagement changed in this virtual world?
Well, Stephen, it's changed a lot. I mean, here we are right now all talking to each other through our video screens. So no question about it, it's changed. But from the very beginning, we knew that our work here in my office, working with the governor's office, with GoBiz, we knew that anything that we could engage in to help plant the seeds and start building the foundation during the middle of COVID in order to prepare for reopening and recovery, we needed to do. And because Governor Newsom and I really recognized that not enough was being done at the state level to support international trade in our state. And he and I decided 2.5 years ago that we would work together. We had already made some pretty significant process that allowed us to invest in the middle of COVID and frankly, take advantage of all this technology. What I mean by that is that I suggested to him that we build out the team at GoBiz to handle the portfolio. We brought in some incredibly knowledgeable and experienced people. And then we got to work to do virtual trade shows. It's kind of interesting when we all think about trade shows. What do? We go into a different time zone, we adjust, we unpack in our hotel rooms, we go get our badges, we go try to network, try to find the people we need to talk to. And of course, I don't want to let those go. I very much enjoy traveling and being in person with people, but there have been efficiencies in working virtually. So in partnership with Kalman Worldwide, we had already been planning these trade missions. Well, they went virtual. Anybody who wanted to participate didn't need to pack a bag, didn't need to leave home. They could just basically log in fairly efficiently, find the people they needed to talk to and engage with. And we had several very successful virtual trade shows with Colombia, with Chile, with Mexico, with Singapore, with Australia. So that work went on. It will be interesting to see how this works in the post-pandemic environment. I have no doubt that we're going to be getting together in person again, but will we allow for people who can't be at a trade show in person to be able to log in to take advantage of the work that goes on at trade shows, and frankly, to be able to offer up what they have and participate virtually? I'm very hopeful that this unfortunate time that has produced this opportunity to communicate virtually will actually help support more of the work that goes on to bring foreign direct investment into our state and frankly, allow us to get California products in more markets around the world.
It's a very good point, Lieutenant Governor, that you mentioned that with the challenges that we face, we have to innovate. And speaking of innovation, California was actually ranked #1 in the Bloomberg's Innovation Index in 2020, which was a really tough year for all of us. So can you talk a bit more about why California is so innovative, and does it benefit companies here and internationally?
So, Stephen, I'm a former United States ambassador. And when I was working and living in Budapest, Hungary for 3.5 years, people ask me all the time, how did Silicon Valley happen? What is the secret? How can we create a Silicon Valley in fill in the blank? And what I came to understand as really anyone representing the United States around the world who gets asked the same question is that we have had a very exciting confluence of opportunities here that I believe have been driven by this combination of immigration plus education. And that has created just incredible opportunities for innovation. And it's the university systems that we have here that I mentioned, our incredible system of public higher education with people who have come from around the world. We are 27% foreign born. Half of us have at least one immigrant parent. There is an excitement, a thirst, a hunger to work hard, to play by the rules. And we are also to some degree unfettered by old ideas of who and what we should be. So this has created an incredible combination. Now, then you match that with the fact that we're the largest consumer market in the United States. So if you do come up with a good product here, you've got a ready-made market in order to be able to take advantage of to get your product out. But the other thing, of course, that we talk about all the time is that this is the #1 location for allocation of venture capital money. Now, one might say, what comes first, the innovation or the venture capital? Well, I have to tell you, I really think that it's grown, that the powerhouse that we are has grown out of this combination that we have here of immigration plus education. But it goes back and forth. The more successful we are in innovating, the more that venture capital wants to be here. The more venture capital that's here, the more that people come from around the world trying to have access to it. I will give you another example from my time in Budapest. A couple of guys in an apartment came up with an app. It's called Prezi. Some of you might know about it. And they founded their company both in Budapest, but as soon as they possibly could in Silicon Valley, they came to California. And by the way, that's not just for everything that California has to offer, but also the protections that they had for their patents that they were able to get in the United States. And again, the US does that very well. So my view, and you mentioned Texas, we have, we certainly have to always keep an eye on competitiveness in our state. And frankly, I talk a lot about housing as well. When the median home price in California is $800,000 for a single family home, and the median home price in Texas is $250,000, that's going to have real implications in terms of keeping companies here. But 20 of the 100 fastest growing companies in the world are located in California. We are doing something right in terms of creating the combination of factors that allow us to be the breeding ground of innovative companies. And the things that we really can control, in my view, the most important thing that we can control is the investment in our education system. Stephen, more than half of the general fund budget of the state of California goes to education. That's K-12, community colleges, the CSU and the UC system. So keeping an eye on that and really recognizing the power of that investment, I think is also very important.
Well, thank you, Lieutenant Governor. You gave us a lot to think about, and I think we're going to use some of your comments as our question and answer with the audience and also with our panelists. From a personal level, I also want to thank you for what you said about the diversity. As an immigrant from Hong Kong, especially in light of all the anti-Asian activities around the nation, to have a leader like yourself to be able to celebrate California's diversity and really elevate that message is so important to me as an immigrant myself. So thank you for that leadership. And at the same time, I look forward to seeing you next week at Select USA. It's a great event. I hope that everybody can join us. And lastly, I want to also invite you and the rest of the audience member to join us in person October 20th and 21st, when we'll be hosting our Select LA Investment Summit in Los Angeles as well. And at that point, hopefully we'll spend a bit more time digesting and also really analyzing some of the questions and some of the issues that you brought up, because this is so important for us to remain competitive in light of the global competition. Lieutenant Governor, thank you so much for your time. We're really appreciative that you spent it with us this morning.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And I will look forward to seeing you in person soon.
Excellent. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point, I want to transition us to the report aspect of the presentation. And we're delighted, as you probably have heard reference, there's some great statistics. So we have two presenters, and I would like to invite Arthur Gerard, who is our economist with the Institute for Applied Economics at LAEDC. He's one of the lead authors of this report, and he's going to share with us some of the highlights so that we can get to the discussion aspect. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Arthur. Arthur, welcome.
Thanks, Stephen. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for being here. As Stephen said, my name is Arthur Gerard, and I work in the Institute for Applied Economics at the LAEDC. And this year, I had the privilege of assisting Mike and the WTCLA with the data work behind this report. I'd like to take a few minutes to share some of the numbers with you right now. So first of all, here are our top line figures for the year. in the 2021 report, foreign-owned enterprises accounted for over 18,000 firms and 700,000 jobs in the state of California, paying over $64 billion in wages to their employees. We can see that the majority of these establishments and employees are located in the 10 counties of the Southern California region, and another third in the Bay Area region. Now, when looking at FDI by industry sector, it's clear that manufacturing is the largest driver of foreign direct investment in the state, supporting nearly 250,000 jobs across 2,800 establishments. Professional and business services follows with over 110,000 jobs, and wholesale trade, retail trade, and financial activities. On the other hand, foreign firms are generally not investing in the natural resources, education, health, and construction sectors in California. We can see here foreign direct investment by source nations. Once again, Japan is at the top of our list with over 3,600 firms and 115,000 jobs supported. The United Kingdom falls into second with over 100,000 jobs, followed by France and Germany. This year, Switzerland actually breaks into the top 5 by employment, despite having many fewer firms than the rest of the top investor nations, while Canada drops down to 6th. And I want to quickly touch on this regional breakdown of FDI by industry sector and source nation. We can see that all 3 regions of California have the same top 3 industries. And for each region, the top 5 source nations are also the same, except in one instance. In the Bay Area, Switzerland actually supports the second most jobs, while Canada is not present in the top 5. Now, the critical part of our overview today lies here in the year-to-year changes. This was something we definitely had our eyes on this year, as we were very interested to see how COVID-19 would impact foreign direct investment in California. And it's clear that the pandemic has had a negative effect, as between this report and our last report, California lost over 27,000 FOE jobs and 267 firms. In the Southern California region in particular, FOE employment fell by over 17,000 jobs, while in the year prior, the employment change had been positive. So we do see a reversal of the trend here. So if we want to dig a little deeper into where we're seeing these losses, when looking at the data, these 6 sectors have experienced the greatest change in jobs year over year. In several cases, as some large corporations have been forced to close down many locations across California. Wholesale trade is very understandable, as retailers have struggled massively over the past year and a half due to the extended closure of storefronts and capacity restrictions. Leisure and hospitality was the hardest hit sector in California, as it includes the accommodation and food services industries. So it's no surprise that also shows up here. And we've also seen a few cases where larger manufacturing companies with a high number of employees have been shuttered due to the pandemic. Now, in financial activities and information, we're actually partially seeing the results of the 2020 merger between T-Mobile and Sprint, which resulted in some location closures and job losses. So some of these changes are actually unrelated to the pandemic. Each of the top 6 source nations for FDI have seen a decline in employment, some more dramatic than others. The United Kingdom and Canada have each lost over 10,000 jobs year over year, and Japan lost about 5,800, along with over 200 firms in California. Meanwhile, as we mentioned earlier, some nations actually continued to add establishments in employment during the pandemic. Now, since I'm limited on time, I can't get as deep into the data as I'd wish. So here are the industries where we're seeing the greatest losses for some of these countries. And if anybody is interested in more detailed information about these year-over-year changes, you can please feel free to reach out to me by email at any time. I will leave that in the chat below. So that is all for me right now, and thank you for your time. I'll turn it right back over to Stephen.
Thank you so much, Arthur. And there's so much data to dig into that we're not going to be able to go through today, as you mentioned. But what we're hoping to do is, like previous year, to start working individually with various countries and various groups to start analyzing that data in a different way. So we look forward to that partnership. Arthur, please stay on the line as we bring you back to as a panel presenter later on. At this point, I would like to also introduce Dr. Chin Sun, Assistant Professor of Marketing at the CSUN Nazarian College. This year, we're delighted to be able to partner with CSUN on our analysis. Every year, as I was mentioning before, we try to work with a different local university to showcase their research capacity, but also to glean from them more information about what we can learn from this set of data. And this year, Dr. Sun is able to help us with the branding of what that means for FDI. So Dr. Sun, welcome. We'd like to have you take the floor and do your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you to everyone for coming to this presentation. In this report, we look at the California as the destination for foreign investment from the place branding perspective. First of all, I want to give you some background information about place branding. So what is place branding? Place branding refers to the marketing activities to promote a favorable place image among the target audience in order to increase the visibility and reputation for the locations. Then a place could be a country, a state, a region, a county, or city. So the purpose of place branding is to build a unique place image among the stakeholders with respect to the competitive advantages of the place. So one key aspect of the place branding is to showcase its competitive advantages in order to showcase its strategic orientations of a place with respect to the needs and preference of the target audience and the key stakeholders. And in this report, we look at the California as a place brand for the foreign direct investment. In order to look at the California as a place brand, as the foreign direct investment destination, we try to look at the existing data to identify some competitive advantages of California to the foreign investors. One competitive advantage we have identified are based on the data from the US Bureau of Economic Analysis. These data sets show that from 2007 to 2018, California was the #1 state in US for foreign investment in terms of the employment in the foreign direct investment in US. As these charts show that the California has the largest percentage of the FOE employment during this time period, which can be considered as a competitive advantages of California as a foreign direct investment destination to the foreign investors. We also look at other competitive advantages based on the data we have by looking at the industry sectors over this time period. For the top 3 states in US, which is California, New York, and Texas. And based on this analysis, we identified the 3 key industry sectors that the California has attracted larger percentages of foreign direct investment in these sectors, which include manufacturing, wholesale trade, and retail trade. So these 3 industry sectors show the potential competitive advantages of California with respect to the industry sectors to the foreign investment. As the existing literature on the foreign direct investment show that the foreign investors found more success in the regions where larger percentages of foreign investment. So in this case, California has a large percentages of foreign investment in terms of employment in US, which is considered as a potential advantages for the California as a place brand for the foreign direct investment. We also look at other data sets from the World Trade Organization in Los Angeles. By looking at the business types of the foreign owned enterprises, based on this table here, we can see that although there are some decrease in the single location and the branch foreign direct foreign owned enterprises from 2020 to 2021, we saw an increase in the headquarter foreign direct foreign owned enterprises from 2020 to 2021. As the location of the parent or headquarter business is important or critical to the FOE's business development and job creation, we could consider this might be another competitive advantages of California as the FDI destination to the foreign investors. We also look at the industry sectors with respect to the business type in the different regions of California. As we can see that in the Bay Area, service has a larger percentage of the FOEs, especially for the headquarter FOEs in these regions. And we see the increase of FOE headquarters in service sectors in Bay Area despite of the pandemics in recent year. So this might be some competitive advantages we can consider for the different regions of California to the foreign investors. In Southern California, we can see that manufacturing and the wholesale trade represent larger percentages of FOEs in California, especially for the headquarter FOEs. By comparison, for the greater California, even there are fewer FOE establishments in this region, but we see an increase in some industry sectors in this region, such as the transportation, communication, and utilities, as well as financial service, insurance, and real estate. So these are the double-digit increase, triple-digit increase for these industry sectors in these regions of California. And we also note that for Great California, the parent FOE established has the largest increase across 3 regions of California. So each region of California has its competitive advantages in different industry sectors, which could be considered as some competitive advantages for each regions in California. As the Lieutenant Governor has discussed in the beginning, California has other competitive advantages to the foreign investors. For this report, we are looking at the competitive advantages based on the data from the US Bureau of Economic Analysis and the FOE data from WTA Los Angeles. So there are some limitations of this report, which cannot showcase all of the competitive advantages of California might have to the foreign investors as a place brand for the foreign direct investment. So this is the report based on the data analysis we conducted for this year's report. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Soon. Such great information. We have so many questions to ask everybody. At this point, I want to bring on our additional panelists. I'm going to change it a little bit. As you probably have noticed, we're running a bit over on time, so I'm hoping that some of you can stay with us. At this point, I want to bring on stage Gurbak Sahota, who is the president and CEO of the California Association for Local Economic Development. I'm not going to go over her very illustrious background. I ask you to look for it on the internet because it's really impressive what she's done. And also, I would like to introduce Darlene Chu Bryant, Executive Director of Global SF, both of which are great partners throughout California. We work on many programs together. And of course, I want to welcome back Arthur and Dr. Soon to join the panel as well. I'm going to focus my questions in the next few sections on with Darlene and with Gurbak. So without further ado, I'm going to bring them on stage, and I'm going to start my first question immediately with Gurbak's. Gurbak, with this report, you've seen a lot of changes are happening, and in the California region, the Greater California region as well. What FDI trends have you noticed in the past year that we should discuss, and specifically how are they impacted by the pandemic?
So first of all, thank you for including me. It's been so exciting listening to the speakers up to this point. And your report is so timely in that I think one thing we're seeing, and we have been seeing across California for some time, is this change to where's the opportunity? It's not just response and recovery, it's where's that next opportunity? And without a doubt, foreign direct investment presents that opportunity for many parts of the state. Trend-wise, I think it's important to first explain that our organization represents economic developers. So we're not the ones that are in the weeds doing the actual attraction of businesses, but we're helping those that are. And so the trends that we see, especially across the area that you have denoted as Greater California, obviously, I think it's important to recognize the diversity within that geographic region. You're talking about, small counties like Alpine County that have maybe 1,200 residents, and you've got Sacramento, which has over 500,000. And that diversity really does impact not just capacity, strategy around FDI. It impacts what the economic focus would be, what businesses you're gonna attract. It was great to hear the Lieutenant Governor talk about the strengths of the far north, Sacramento, and the Eastern Sierras, as well as the Central Valley. So what we're seeing is definitely a lot of difference in terms of how these communities approach FDI. And I don't think that's new during the pandemic. Some have the capacity to still address response and recovery, as well as chase opportunity. Some have been focused primarily on response and recovery, helping their businesses. That said, the other part of your report that really stood out to me that speaks to a trend is the addition of brand. Brand is so important because these communities in Greater California often tell their story in relation to, meaning we're south of Los Angeles, we're 80 miles east of San Francisco. You guys have a powerhouse international brand. So to have that piece included, I can't understate the importance of, I can't overstate the importance of brand and what it means, especially to Greater California. So when you think about those two things, the challenges sometimes with capacity and the differences in strategy in such a large region, and then you think about the less likelihood that foreign communities, business owners would be familiar with those parts of the state, what you see is these communities really relying on the state, really relying on partnerships, really relying on the federal government. And in that space, we see local and regional partnerships like the Central Valley Marketing Group. We see groups really engage with like Team California, for example, if you're doing trade shows, Rural County Representatives of California, if you're looking at biomass and you need support in that space. But then turning to larger governments for help, it was great to hear the Lieutenant Governor talk about the growth and the emphasis at the state level on FDI, on international trade. It provides a support system where communities that don't necessarily have the capacity to address branding, to fall under that larger California brand and to go out and market. And then I think without a doubt, our strongest partner is the U.S. Commercial Service. I mean, here's a group of professionals that have been doing the job for years. We know we can count on them regardless of, how economic development ebbs and flows or support for it at the local or state level. We know that these professionals are out there as our ambassadors with foreign countries, foreign entrepreneurs, helping them find a home in California. So a lot of what we're seeing is looking for partnerships, especially in those communities. How do we work together to get our name on the map?
Great points, Garbax, and thank you for CalLED's leadership in helping us really learn from the various regions throughout California. I think through this pandemic, we've learned that the best ideas are not just located in the population center, but throughout California. And what you do help us basically kind of join forces with our other partners around the state as well. Speaking of which, I wanted to turn this to Darlene. Darlene and I, you and I have been working more and more closely together over the last few years, and I'm delighted for that partnership. But we've also learned quite a lot from you, especially with your initiative, with Global SF's initiative to develop stronger relationship with China, with Latin America and Asia in general. Can you give us some examples of the successes that you're having with these initiatives?
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. I mean, clearly they were started as public-private partnerships with the City and County of San Francisco. And the idea was to really focus on those regions at the time, even though now we are Global SF and a greater platform. What we've seen is that through stronger communication, for example, we have monthly meetings where we touch base with all the trade offices and consulates. But in addition to that, we have the one-on-one relationships where we actually talk to them and say, hey, we're not just looking at foreign direct investment coming to San Francisco, but the thing is that we want to help to promote you as well and your companies that come over. So if there are any products that we can help promote, in the US and the Bay Area, let us know, and then we'll find those relationships and make those partnerships. So we actually have been moving in that direction. To that point, working with even Mexico, for example, everybody's always thinking foreign direct investment is coming from China, it's coming from Asia. We actually have investment coming from Mexico now, and I'm actually pleased to say that we have someone looking seriously at investing in San Francisco real estate, and we actually have a coffee chain coming from Guadalajara investing in in San Francisco, and and as well as the rest of the peninsula. So we do see these investments coming in, and it is because of the focused relationships we've started to create.
Thank you, Darlene. And it's so important to highlight, just around, the Lieutenant Governor mentioned a couple of countries, but as you look at the report, we're getting investment from around the world, which is a great thing. What I also got from Dr. Soon's kind of portion of the report is that we have beaten New York and Texas year after year, but we can't rest on our laurel. We got to work more closely together to ensure that we remain the top foreign direct investment location. With that said, I'm going to go back to Garbax a little bit. As an economic development organization, can you talk a little bit about how CalLED supports investors and the local economy?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the things that we do, especially with foreign direct investors, is if that lead comes to us, because we know we're not the experts, we try to really quickly give them the lay of the land and get them connected to the right partner, whether that's the US Commercial Service, the state, or if they already know where they want to be, connect them to the economic developer in the network there. So in that space, that's our role. It's really not for us to be the expert in helping those businesses. The other thing that we do is that we provide resources to help our communities. As you think about the uneven capacity across the state, we want to make sure we have tools that they can use. And we're really fortunate to say, just in time for Select USA next week, we have a great California FDI tech guide that we're releasing, and we're releasing it in partnership and certainly with the support of the US Commercial Service. And when I say in partnership, what we saw in the Northern California offices of the US Commercial Service is that they were getting a lot of inquiries about, I'm a tech-based business, how do I establish myself in California? The original intent was to figure out, is there a guide? Is there something that we can give these businesses, these entrepreneurs to help them? And in our conversations, it became really apparent that support is necessary across the state. So we released this great guide, and I think that you guys will find huge value out of it. I'll put the link in the website, but the intent of the guide is to really either one, help you if you're a business looking to locate here, or if you're an economic developer or you're working with a foreign business, trying to help them figure out, navigate the decisions that they need to make to get here. Here's a great checklist and the associated resources with it. And again, a lot of it is informed by the great work done by our US Commercial Service. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Gerbax. And to the audience member, I know that we're going over our time a little bit. If you can give us another like 4 or 5 minutes, and I just want to get a couple really important questions in there, and then we'll conclude. Going back to Darlene, as Gerbax was talking about the kind of the traction and helping the FDI coming in, knowing that not just from a global or SF perspective, you're also a board member for the Asian Pacific American Leadership Foundation. How do you suggest leaders work to increase FDI, not only from Asian countries from around the world? Like what are the actions that need to be done?
I think it's important for our legislators to be more open-minded when it comes to legislating. Something that I learned recently is that instead of legislating, they should do less regulating, but provide more guidance, right? It's like, what is the intent of this legislation? For example, there has been a lot of discussion, and clearly California is one of the leaders when it comes to clean energy, when it comes to clean vehicles and electric vehicles and et cetera. However, is that also going to hurt our competitive edge when it comes to, transportation and the supply chain, when we talk about import, export, and, move the business, for example, even to Texas and Atlanta because of the ports that are opening in there. So a lot of things that we really have to think about, and we hope that our legislators will really help and work more closely with the business community. So again, less regulation, but more guidance, right? Providing guidelines. So changing the way that we actually legislate this state, I think will make a huge difference in terms of making sure we remain the 5th largest economy in the world. So
excellent. Thank you. Great points. Great points. Dr. Soon, I want to ask you, from what you found in your analysis, what do you think is California's most competitive advantage in attracting investors, and how can we leverage that?
Based on my data analysis, California has shown its position as the FDI destination for foreign investors. For example, as I have discussed in my presentation, California is the #1 state in terms of number of employees employed by FOEs in US, followed by Texas and New York, which I would consider as the competitive advantages for California as a place brand to attract foreign investors to California. As a foreign business seek to gain a foothold in the US market, the policymakers in California need to differentiate California from other states by showing its competitive advantages for the foreign direct investment and the values that California can offer to the foreign investors. So it's more about the policy orientations of the state government on how to better position California as a place brand for the foreign direct investment.
It's a great opportunity.
Competitive advantages.
Yeah, and it's a great opportunity to Darlene's point for us to work with our legislators to kind of show the guidance in terms of what we can do. I know that we're running out of time, so I'm going to close with Arthur as a question, looking at the future. From an economic perspective, how do we anticipate and how should we anticipate the FDI report changing next year? Is it good news? Is it bad news? What do you think?
I think that's a great question, Stephen. I think it's still very much in the air. I think our expectations for the future are very much tied to how the pandemic and the recovery process unfolds. So we're wondering how the United States will approach economic recovery, how the current administration will attempt to strengthen the US market and promote production within the country. The UN expects that any increases in global FDI flows in 2021 will be focused around mergers and acquisitions, particularly in technology and healthcare. So I think that if we were to look a bit longer term, we'd see a lot of potential opportunities in California within those two spaces, and also in sectors like professional and business services and information, where we're anticipating growth in the future in California. But the pandemic sort of put those plans for the future on hold, as many companies have to place a larger focus right now on either recovery or expanding their store of capital before looking to their longer term plans once again. So in terms of how the FDI report may change in the next year, I think the beginning of the recovery process could be reflected in the next report, and we may start to see those top line figures trending upwards once again. It appears that foreign-owned establishments have been fairly resilient in California compared to domestic employers. So there could be more opportunities for growth earlier on. But I think everyone is still, pretty cautious about how the next fiscal year will play out. And most are waiting to see what happens before making their next move. So a full recovery is definitely going to take a lot more time.
Got it. Well, what I'm hearing is that the future is in our hands. It's up to what we do. And I think this is a good transition for us to close the session, but at the same time, invite our partners that are attending this webinar to join us next week. I believe that both Gerbax and Darlene and us and the Lieutenant Governor's office will be at Select USA, really talking about what Dr. Soon was talking about, right? We need to brand ourselves. We need to market ourselves to the audience to make sure that we remain the 5th largest economy and the top destination for foreign direct investment. They're not going to come to us naturally without us telling our story. And we couldn't just let other states like Texas and Arizona tell our story for us. We need to tell our own story, which is a very positive story. There are challenges, but there are a lot of positive aspect to it. So I look forward to working very closely with each and every one of you to make sure that we remain competitive so that our regional economy, our state economy continues to be growing, equitable, sustainable, resilient, and provides a healthy and high standard of living for all. I want to thank our speakers today, Darlene, Gerbax, Arthur, Dr. Stoon. I also want to thank the Lieutenant Governor and also the Dean for their great support. We couldn't have done this without our friends and our partners, and we're looking forward to doing a lot more to ensure that we attract foreign direct investment to California. With that, we invite you to join us next week at Select USA, and also please mark your calendar for October 20th and 21st for Select LA in Los Angeles. Please visit our website, wtcla.org, for more information. We will see you in sunny Los Angeles and sunny California soon when we can see each other in person. Thank you so much. Have a great day.